So, welcome back to another episode of Redefining Success. And today we are diving into the topic of embracing vulnerability as a strength. So, I know that vulnerability can feel like it's a big, heavy word, right? Like, what does it mean to be vulnerable? And especially, what does it mean to be vulnerable in the workplace, in your business? Is there room for vulnerability in this professional space? And I'm going to say 100% yes. And, from the previous weeks that we've been compounding over time here, we've talked about authenticity. We've talked about what it means to lead with courage and confidence, to embracing vulnerability. And that's today's topic. So I think for me, like vulnerability is one of your greatest superpowers. When you can really hone in and understand from the depths of who you are as an individual, as a leader, as the person behind your business, behind every relationship that you have, it takes tearing off our masks, right? Because we have to wear so many roles and hats, but it's about stripping the facade, taking off the mask, taking off the titles, roles, and hats, and just truly being seen. And what does it feel like to be seen? What does it mean like to be seen? And Amy, I would love for you to share a little bit about what vulnerability means for you so we can kick off this episode. And oh my gosh, we're going to have an incredible deep dive here.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it's all about taking that mask off, cutting out all the noise, that facade that we've built up over years. We've been conditioned to think that vulnerability is a weakness, but really, when you get down to it, that's our biggest strength because that's what connects us to one another. It's our willingness, exactly as you said, to be seen. And that is scary. That is very scary in a world that is so filtered, that there is so much judgment to be willing to put yourself out there. But I really feel as though our willingness to be vulnerable gives others permission to do the same. But it's scary. It is really scary. And this is where I think it's really important that you do lean on your faith, universe, creator, whatever you believe in. You need to have that deep core belief. But vulnerability is a superpower because it builds connection. It builds connection between us. And then as leaders, when we're able to raise our hand and go, you know what? I can't do this on my own. I need help. I want feedback. Because at the end of the day, it's not about the me, it's about the we. It's about how can we link arms together and support one another. Rachel, I lost you. Now I'm the host. Gotta love technology, right? We will see if Rachel joins us back here in just a second. But if you are struggling with this, please know that you are not alone. You are not alone in this. And vulnerability is not a weakness, it is powerful, but it takes practice. It takes practice because we're so ingrained to fear the judgment. We are so afraid to be judged and to put ourselves out there. So it goes hand in hand with the authenticity piece. So for me, vulnerability is allowing your heart to be seen, the willingness to open your heart and be seen and accept the help from others. You're back.
Yes.
Technology.
Gotta love that. Talk about vulnerability, right? I mean,
Right? Exactly. But this is a perfect example of that. Like you and I, we are not perfect. And I really think, it goes back, it ties in perfectly with your book too, that we're constantly chasing perfectionism. But when we allow our hearts to be seen, be openly, just human,
yeah.
that really builds that strong connection between us.
Right. And I know I missed some of what was said, but to parlay into what we're talking about is, vulnerability again is your superpower. It is your strength. It's about not being afraid to be seen for the mishaps, mistakes, your flaws, your imperfections, the things that really make you unique. And I think that that's something to really dive into when we look at who we are as individuals, right? We're imperfect, we're flawed, we're never going to get it right. Things happen. I mean, we're here having a live streaming and then the world happens and internet goes
Right.
down and you're like, what's going on here? And you're wondering like, oh my gosh, I'm live stream. Like, how is this going to, and that's the thing when you just bounce back, the resiliency aspect of it. So I think for me, like vulnerability again is, and I want to set this part here is it's not about dishing out and airing out the dirty laundry, right? The dirty biz. But it's about when you're able to really heal from a place of the depths where compassion, understanding, empathy, grace, gratitude, all the things that are within us, we produce that at the front. It comes to the top. And that's where we can just strip everything down and just be who we are. So what are we? We're spiritual beings living a human existence. So when we can recognize that it's not against this humanness, it's about our spirit connecting with other people, other spirits, right? So that's the connectivity when we look at doing business and doing life. We're not just meeting those relationships, but we're connecting soul to soul, heart to heart. We see through them. We see them because we're able to see through ourselves and go to those depths of lows. One of the scriptures that I wanted to share here that really brings everything together about vulnerability is in 2 Corinthians 12:8. And it says, my grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. So now I am glad to boast about my weaknesses so that the power of Christ can work through me. That's why I take pleasure in my weaknesses and in the insults, hardships, persecutions, and troubles that I suffer for Christ. For where I am weak, then I am made strong. That just talks about exactly what I said. It's about the spirit, right? We're going through trials and tribulations. We're going through things that are going to strengthen and shape and condition our character of who we are as leaders, as mothers, as wives, as friends, as daughters, aunts, and so on. How can we use those weaknesses, is what the world tells us, to build that up and make that our strength? How can we bring their strengths into our business, into the transactions, relationships, and the work ethic that we bring into our communities?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think circling back to something you said earlier, there's a lot of misconceptions out there as to what vulnerability really means. Exactly as you said, it's not about airing all the dirty laundry. It's not about sharing every single detail of your life, but it's admitting, like, you know what? I'm not perfect. I am not perfect. And that's challenging to do, to come to terms with yourself and realize, like, guess what? I'm really flawed. And I've been putting this facade forward. And now it's time to take that away. And that can be really, really scary. What advice can you give someone listening that, you know what, like, I know I need to be more vulnerable, but it's scary? How can they start to build that ability and practice that a willingness to be vulnerable, to be seen, to be heard? What advice can you give us?
I think the first thing is to recognize where we're holding ourselves back. And it's
Mm,
okay to say, I don't know. I need help. And sometimes those are the two hardest things to speak out because again, if you're the leader, if you're the front, you're kind of the front man of everything. People go to you, what are for the answers, for the solutions. But if you don't know, just say, I don't know, but I have the willingness to find out. I will do the work. I will ask for help. I will seek that answer because it goes back to one of our previous episodes about growth mindset, right? We need to be constantly pursuing and growing in the curiosity and the wonderment so that we can continue to grow as individuals and strengthen our team and our leaders as well.
yeah.
What about
I, I think people really respect that. When you, it feels so counterintuitive, doesn't it? When you say, I don't know or I need help, people really start to view you differently. And it feels awkward at first. But the more I've practiced flexing that muscle, the easier it's gotten because now I know exactly what my zone of genius is. And then I know when I need to have people alongside of me to help me fill those gaps because I am far, far from perfect. But when I can bring people around me that can help fill those gaps, gosh, we can create something even better. It allows me to step into a higher level version of myself so that I can serve people even better.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that at that point, when you're able to break down that wall and say, I don't know, and ask for help, what you're doing is allowing other people to come into your space. And that gives them the opportunity to share their gifts, their wisdom, their insight. And now it becomes this collaborative unit, which is, supporting each other. And isn't that the whole point of where teams come together, where leadership thrives? Because we know that we single handedly cannot do everything by ourselves. And if we're rolling with that identity, sometimes we need to just hang up that hat and say, "Hey, listen, I'm not the be it all, do it all." And I think that that's kind of what we're seeing in the world is like that whole self-sufficiency and that you go girl, you don't need anybody, you're Miss Independent. It's like I think we push sometimes that boundary, that limit way too far,
Yeah.
and it feels weird to pull that back. And I think that that's really where, well, again, being vulnerable and saying, "Hey, listen, here it is. I don't know it. Do you happen to know?" You start asking for help, but that engages communication, it engages conversation. It helps close that gap and minimize some of the struggles that we're all going through, but it also makes you real, human, and connectable.
Yeah. Real, human, and connectable. That is spot on in a nutshell, like vulnerability. And two, I think it goes back to the willingness to be a beginner again. We are so often comparing ourselves to someone that is, light years ahead of us. But we forget everyone started at ground zero. Every single successful person out there. Oprah, look at her. If she wasn't willing to be vulnerable, we wouldn't know Oprah. She wouldn't be a household name. It just really is humbling when you can take that step back and realize, you know what? We're all on this journey together. You're not alone, even though this world can feel so isolating, so lonely. Start practicing the art of vulnerability. Start
Mm.
asking for help because people are out there that want to help you. There are truly people that are out there that want to see you succeed. So, vulnerability is not a weakness, it's a superpower. It is
Mhm.
a strength, but it takes practice. It takes practice to put in the reps and bravery to be willing to put yourself out there.
Absolutely. And I'll add to that, it also takes courage. And
Yeah.
sometimes courage it takes is being the first to raise their hand and say, I
Yeah.
don't.
Isn't
And
that the truth? Whew.
oh my goodness. I know. It's just, it's like when sometimes what I recognize in my own self is like when I could sense that somebody's like, I don't know, I'm always the first to go. Because when you do a lot of that inner work for yourself, you recognize that you got to be the leader. You got to set that example. And I will never pretend that I have all the answers. I don't.
Right.
And
None of us do.
no, and over here for, I don't know. So he's like, "Oh my gosh, thank you for saying that." It's like, yes, because this is if we somebody has to go first.
Right.
And when you recognize it in yourself, that becomes that strength. Again, vulnerability is not weakness. Asking for help is not weakness. Raising your hand is not weakness. The willingness to be seen is not weakness. We all want to be seen, but we want to be seen in this perfect facade, which
Yep.
parlays into that imposter syndrome because we all want to be coined the expert, the know it all, the guru, the go to. But how can we if we're unwilling to be actually seen? So this goes back to everything that we've been talking about. But I'm just excited for even next week. I mean, we're wrapping up today's session, and it's like we look forward to next week when we're really going to be talking about the intersection of faith and personal growth. So, Amy, I know that we've talked about this. We're excited for next week as well.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited because everything's really so interconnected. As much as we like to compartmentalize and put things in little perfect boxes, it's not how the world works. If I am fulfilled personally, I show up better professionally. So, we're really going to dive into the personal growth piece and then how our faith and spirituality supports. Because at the end of the day, we are human beings. We are not human doings. We need to remember to pour into ourselves so that we can serve others.
Yes, awesome. So we look forward to next week. So be sure to join us then. And until then, take care.